John 6:11. Accepit ergo panes Iesus, et cum gratias egisset, distribuit discumbentibus, similiter et expiscibus quantum volebant. Therefore Jesus received the loaves of bread, and when he had given thanks, he gave them out to those reclining or sitting down. In the same way also from the fish, as much as they wanted. Continuing here with the story of the feeding of the 5,000, we see that Jesus, in the perfect third person singular active indicative, received, this is a long E from the perfect stem, received the loaves of bread. Remember we said that panes in the plural is best translated into English as loaves. Then we get a nice little cum circumstantial clause here. And when, not at some specific named moment or hour, but as adducing a general circumstance, that's why we call it cum circumstantial, when he had given thanks. Now this you'll recognize as a form of ago agere, egi, actum is the fourth principal part there. Egisset, this is our third person singular pluperfect subjunctive. Why subjunctive? We understand why it's pluperfect, right? Because this is a thing that happened prior to another thing that is also in the past from our perspective, from the perspective of the narrator, but less in the past than this thing. It's subjunctive because of that cum being used circumstantially. So you'll remember, of course, that gratias agere is an idiom in Latin to give thanks, to express thankfulness. Here, thanks is being given 2 degrees in the past, in the very past, we might say, and again in the subjunctive mood because of that circumstantial cum. So all this being the case, he shared out, distributed, dispersed, and we've got to repeat again panes. We've got to understand that as the object again here. He shared out those loaves of bread to those who were literally lying down or reclining. We've been saying sitting for this word because in the modern world, in most places, generally one sits to eat rather than reclining. But in the ancient world, people reclined to eat. So we can imagine that it would have been natural on this grassy area for these people, for the crowd to be reclining, probably propped up on one elbow. That's the way people ate in the ancient world. However, translation involves not just translation of the language, but to some extent translation of some of these cultural norms. And so we say sitting to help us understand what really is going on here in our own terms. But just note that discumbere, usually lie down or recline, depending on the context. Now we've got to sort of understand some punctuation here to give us a pause at least. So he shared out the loaves of bread to those who were lying down. And by the way, this is a dative participle as the indirect object. Again, panes is the understood direct object of distribuit. Here, discumbentibus is the indirect object, the people to whom the panes are being given. In the same way, similiter, also, from the fish, out of the stock of fish that they had, which as you'll remember was not very large. And now we've got to understand, again, kind of a repetition of distribuit, discumbentibus, and then add in quantum volebat. So again, this expression is a bit compressed, but we've got to understand him to be saying, the narrator is, in the same way, also, from the fish that they possessed, he gave out or shared out to those reclining, just as he did with the panes, but we can drop that part because, again, the repetition is assumed, quantum volebant, as much as they wanted. That is, as much as was desired by those who were reclining. And this is volo, velle, that you see here in the imperfect tense. We get that infix, that characteristic imperfect infix, volebant. They wanted. Third person plural, imperfect active indicative.